Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. Thanks for joining us today and for today's conversation. Value your guys' input and participation as always on this channel, so thanks for being here. Today we're going to be discussing a time frame as it relates to preparedness. You'll understand what I mean by that after we start going through this with the video here. Now, preparedness, being prepared, prepping, kind of connotates some different thoughts in different people's minds. Kind of gets a bad rap. I know I have my preconceived notions about what it means, and I'll tell you that having a fire extinguisher in your kitchen or near your kitchen, having a first aid kit, having a spare tire in your car with a jack and the proper tools to switch out a flat tire should you get one, are all preparedness. You know, some people look at having a concealed weapon as being a form of preparedness for an unforeseen circumstance or incident that they feel like they may need to address. So depending on who you are and your idea of preparedness, it depends on kind of where you draw the line on the different circumstances or incidents in which you yourself decide to prepare for in life. Because as we all know, there are some things you just cannot prepare for. Such as if a pilot of the plane you are flying in decides to drill it into the side of a mountain, well, there's really nothing you can do about that if you are on a plane. But there are things in which you have control over and circumstances in life that you have the ability to prepare for. So buckle up, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and let's talk about being prepared for the types of situations I'm going to talk about today here on the Junius Maltby channel. It's going to be a broad topic. We're going to meander, probably get sidetracked a little bit, but I'd like to first introduce a situation which I am familiar with. Some of you I know out there on the channel are going to be very familiar with it. And it's going to be we're going to use this as an analogy for a lot of different things. Now, it's going to be regarding the supply of both food and purchasing power, money, or wealth. The example I'm going to use initially is going to be ammunition sales and the supply of ammunition here in the United States and the speed at which it disappeared most recently as it relates to a particular ammunition category. If you look up in the news, there was an ammunition called M855. Or the SS-109 military ball ammo. It's a kind of a cheap bulk military surplus ammunition. It got mislabeled by the ATF, and we're not going to get into all the details of the ammo because that's not what the point of this video is. The point is, because it was labeled somewhat as a armor-piercing round, there was legislation or preparation of legislation being made by the ATF to ban this particular ammunition. Within approximately 5 hours of the statement, the letter issued by the ATF that this was going to be controlled and banned in a way, this ammunition essentially disappeared from the open market. Now I know because I myself shoot and I purchase ammunition at times, and I've got a lot of friends in that industry as well, and the ammunition, as far as you are concerned, and I would be concerned, vanished from the market. It was consumed almost immediately by a very small percentage of the population. So keep that in mind. How many of you out there even know what that ammunition is? I mean, a very small percentage. And it's not a bad thing if you don't, but there's a very small percentage of the American population that knew what this ammunition was and even knew that it was going to potentially become illegal. I mean, you're talking about even a fraction of a percentage of gun owners knew of the existence of this particular cartridge. And when it began to become rumored that it was going to be illegal, within 5 hours, the entire internet sold out of it. Storefronts in small communities from coast to coast sold out of it. We've seen similar rushes in the past for ammunition when any legislation or political unrest occurred in the United States where there was conversations and discussions regarding ammunition sales. I mean, after the shooting at Sandy Hook, most magazine-fed semi-automatic rifles in the country sold out. Ammunition and magazines themselves sold out. They were gone. Empty shelves. And it created an incredible shortage, and you couldn't get them, you couldn't find them. Okay. Now, to keep that in mind, that 5 hours, I want you to keep that in mind. Set a clock, set a timer, set a stopwatch someday, and realize I would say that's an absolute, that's a best case scenario. If you look at the small amount of people that knew about the ammunition and the very small percentage of the population, and to realize that within 5 hours of the political climate changing, that money flowed into it, people spent it, and consumed all of the available supply of that ammunition. Now pretend for a moment that happened with food or even precious metals, which this has happened, so bear with me on this. We're going to talk about it in a historical context as well here. Because we're going to look at the future, we're going to look at possibilities and how this all translates into you and me being prepared for, well, anything. Let's go back to 2008 for a second. Remember the instability that took place financially? Lehman Brothers collapsed. There was all kinds of shadowy movements taking place in cyberspace, and money was just disappearing. Remember the big run on the money markets? That one night at around 3 o'clock in the morning, it hit the news the next day and over the course of the following weeks, but something like 3 trillion or 300 billion. It was an incredible, a vast quantity of money disappeared from money markets in a mere hours with keystrokes on keyboards. Now there's headlines coming out saying that because of the digital age and the instant access to banks, we're not going to see runs on the banks like we have in the past because it can happen digital. It can happen without you going to a bank and standing in line. So these bank runs that have occurred throughout history during times of financial trouble or inflationary crisis, hyperinflationary crisis, if that were to ever happen, big if, anywhere in any of the Western countries, Europe, the United States, you name it, Russia, Asia, any country is susceptible to these types of financial uncertainties. There's no guarantee. I've always asked, I need someone to show me where it's guaranteed that that's never going to happen again, and why somehow, how people come up with the mindset that the West, the United States, the EU, are immune to any of the scenarios which in the past have plagued, historically, other nations and other cultures. I mean, even the seat of the euro today, which is pretty much, let's just say, Germany, they had a major hyperinflationary crisis during the Weimar years. As you've seen on this channel in the past, I'm not going to do it right now. You can go back and find the videos where I do. If you're a recent viewer and you dig through some of the past videos, maybe other viewers on here can actually help you out and show you the links to the videos. But I have put up lists before, scrolling lists of hundreds and hundreds of nations and currencies that have experienced these hyperinflationary scenarios. It's not isolated to just Weimar, Germany, or the Zimbabwe scenario. It's happened throughout history to numerous currencies. The list of expired paper currencies is endless. So let's go, now remember, 5 hours. Imagine you wake up one morning, you're drinking your coffee, you're watching an extremely boring Junius Maltby channel. The sparrows are out in your yard singing. You're having your breakfast, and you look at your computer screen and you realize, oh my goodness, there is a crisis unfolding. I would estimate that by the time you could make the decision to execute transactions, it could almost be too late for you. If you're lucky enough to get up early enough, to see it early enough, or to be notified early enough, you might then just have time. But it's never a good idea to wait till that moment, to be prepared, to act, to do something. No one wants to be that person, that guy, in that situation. It's uncomfortable, it's stressful, especially when you're looking at the prospect of losing the fruits of your labors, a life savings, life's earnings, all of that kinetic energy that's pent up and held up in your accounts that you worked so hard to earn. So I'm going to leave you, I want to give you a saying that we're going to keep referring to throughout this video, a theme, and it's, you're only as prepared as you are right now. Because it could be a moment from now, and that moment could be any measure of time. I want you to look for a second at the chaos, the crowds, the civil violence and unrest that occurs just on Black Friday in the United States. Look at the storefronts of Walmart and Target, the mad rush for junk, garbage goods that people rush for. Now imagine it's food. Imagine what will happen. I mean, they say that a grocery store, if the trucks stop showing up to stock your average neighborhood grocery stores, they have less than 3 days worth of produce and goods in them for that population at normal buying rates. You create a rush, and that coincides with the shipping not showing up, the trucks not arriving for whatever reason. It's gone. 3 hours, 4 hours. That store's empty. Gone. All of it. This isn't to create panic. This is just, you and I are having a conversation here. This isn't fear-mongering. This is as much fear-mongering as it would be if you and I were having a conversation regarding grease fires in a kitchen and why it's important to have a fire extinguisher accessible in your kitchen. If you were having that conversation, would you say you're a fear-monger? So please, if those of you out there that say that you're getting ready to turn this off because you're like, oh, not another fear-mongering video. No, we're not fear-mongering. We're having a conversation regarding preparedness mindset and how it translates into our lives and what we're comfortable with and where we choose to draw that line. As far as, I'm just trying to stimulate conversation and thoughts. Where you're comfortable, where do you put that line? As far as, I'm going to prepare for this scenario, but not this. Like myself personally, I don't prepare for alien invasions. That's not in my category of things that I choose to prepare for. I have my own reasons because I just don't choose to prepare for alien invasions. When I go out in the woods, I don't prepare to be jumped by Bigfoot. I just choose not to. Maybe I don't believe in him. But I do choose to prepare slightly for economic uncertainty, financial unrest, possible inflationary scenarios, devaluations of currency, dollar collapse, dollar crisis, currency collapse, currency wars, food shortages, things of that nature. I think those are realistic scenarios. I look at history, and I look at the past, I look at current world events, and I take in all that data, and then I come up with scenarios in which I myself am comfortable preparing for. And that's what I'm trying to talk to you guys about and see where you guys are at and what you're comfortable in preparing for. So we've looked at how fast ammunition sold out. Like that. Snap your fingers. 5 hours, it was all gone nationwide. M855. Gone. That particular cartridge was gone. You could not get it, essentially. Look at the past ammunition firearm sales. We've looked at that. Now, I have also witnessed, in my short tenure here on the planet, I have witnessed at times shortages in metals. I've been, some of you might know, if you've been around this channel for a while, I've been buying precious metals for approximately 30, let's go 25. I'd say 25 years, more steady, buying precious metals. I remember buying silver ounces for $4 an ounce, $5 an ounce back in the day. I've been buying gold my whole life, pretty steady, pretty easy to get a hold of it. Now, I remember times where it was the worst I've seen it, the tightest I've seen it, I guess, where it's the most difficult to obtain precious metals, and where the premiums, the price over spot, went the most, was the highest, was right after the financial collapse, 2008. So I've got memories from about 2008 to 12 where you almost couldn't get metals. It was very difficult. It became increasingly difficult as more and more people woke up and became aware the supply side of precious metals, the physical, was drying up from the market. I remember I was in a coin shop one day, and this is not an exaggeration. I witnessed this with my own eyes. I was standing at a counter, and gold was hanging out around 800, 850 an ounce, I believe. And it was right in the beginning. So it was in the tail end of like 2007, 8. Things were starting to percolate on the market. You could start seeing some signs. And I was standing behind a gentleman. I was in there to buy a pittance, like maybe a tenth or maybe a couple ounces of silver. And I'm standing there, and the gentleman in front of me exchanged a large quantity of cash, possibly a cashier's check. I don't remember exactly. I remember what he took receipt of and delivery of. He reached across the counter and was receiving 200 Canadian gold maple leafs. Gold maple leafs. 200 ounces of gold. And this is a very large coin shop. And I know the owner quite well. We had some conversations at times as I've bought gold there. And he's had his finger on the pulse for quite some time with the metals. And he began getting concerned around 08, 09 of the availability of physical metal. There was a time in there where he told me he could only bring in, it got to the point, and he was a large buyer, U.S. Mint dealer and everything. He could only bring in about 20 ounces additional of gold a week. It got to that point. And it was measured in like 100 or 200 ounces of even silver. The premiums were skyrocketing. People were not coming into his store and selling it. They were only buying it. So physical was basically being hoarded and disappearing off the market. That could happen again. You know, as soon as people start getting scared a little bit, or currency starts having issues, and people start buying buying gold, real money, and silver, real money, it's very easy for that tide to turn. Think of the small percentage, and this is where we're going to start getting to this, the point here. Another point, I guess. Like I said, we get sidetracked. Think of how small of a population percentage buys physical metals right now. From the different reading that I've done and different experts that I respect, it's somewhat agreed upon that less than 1% of the U.S. population has ever held or even seen a physical ounce of gold. And less than 1% of the population owns any physical gold that's not in the form of jewelry. So less than 1% owns any gold coins whatsoever in this country, pretty much. I would say it's most likely very similar for silver. Similar percentages. So very few. Less than 1%. That's nothing. That's probably less than even purchased ammunition or purchased other items that we've seen disappear off the market in times of crises in the past. So imagine a scenario for a moment now where there is some kind of awakening of the population, as well as that, it coincides with either, let's say, inflationary, hyperinflationary, any form of circumstances that create somewhat of a rush or a run towards metals. It could happen for a myriad of reasons. Now, if that were, and people are becoming, I believe, more and more aware of the value of physical metals as time goes on. Not only is it inherent into our genetic code because of 70 centuries of practice and monetary theory, it's pretty obvious. I mean, you give anybody a 100-gram bar of gold or pure gold bar and some pure gold coins, you drop that into their hand, and I don't care who they are, they immediately recognize typically and can feel the wealth in it. And you talk to them for a second, you tell them what it is. Once they realize they can realize the value. It almost goes without saying. They realize the ability of gold and silver to preserve a dynasty, to preserve a name, to store wealth long term. So let's pretend for a moment that 1% turns into 2, 3, 4, or 5% of a population. Let's say 10% of the population wakes up and realizes they want to unload their cash, their paper, as fast as they possibly can to get real goods or assets. I don't care if they're buying nails, tools, or bedpans. As soon as a rush to unload cash occurs within a society to procure hard assets, And the reason I said bedpans is because I remember reading an Economist years ago that happened. Weimar Germany, once gold and silver disappeared off the market, when the mark was crashing, when the German mark was dying, it was in the death throes of a currency, the German people were unloading their paper as fast as they got it. They were buying food, and as soon as they couldn't get that, they would buy tools, hammers, things that you could hold, physical, that would always hold their value. And there was an old woman in his family, one of the only physical things that she could go buy, because gold and silver, they were forget about it, they were gone. No longer available for sale on the market. People were not getting rid of it. The price was going up too fast. The mark was dying. She bought bedpans. The little old woman bought bedpans just to get rid of her paper. She bought something that you urinate and defecate in order to get rid of her paper. As soon as that happens, whether you're in England, whether you're watching this in France, Canada, the United States, Australia, Singapore, China, Vietnam, Ghana, I don't care where you are, Mongolia, if you understand the English language and you can hear what I'm saying, whatever country you're in, it's up to you. No one else is going to look out for you. Your government's not going to look out for you. No one you know will look out for you. Only you can look out for you. And only you can ensure that you are prepared. And remember, you are only as prepared as you are right now. What do you have on you? Look around you. It doesn't have to be a lot. You've seen that $1 silver in my pocket that I carry. That, at times, is all I have, because I'm miles, thousands of miles from my home, from anything. And the only thing I have on me is my wallet, a couple of debit cards, a couple of pieces of Fiat paper, and that silver dollar. It's my real wealth, my real money. I met an old man this week actually, it was just a couple days ago, and we were talking about these things. We were having a conversation, and believe it or not, it came up. And I showed him my silver dollar, and as part of the conversation. It was good. And you know what he did? One of the first times, I've never seen this before, he pulls his wallet out, and in it, he has a little plastic slip. And inside that plastic slip is a British gold sovereign. For the same reasons I carry my little silver dollar. I'm not brave enough or wealthy enough really to carry around a British gold sovereign. And I'm also forgetful enough to where I'd be afraid to lose it, even though I've never lost my silver dollar. But that's the same reason that British pilots and fighter pilots for years have been given 3 British sovereigns to carry in their uniform. So no matter where they went down in this world, they got shot down or to eject out of their plane, they could buy passage or safety or goods, whatever. They had their little 3 gold coins on them. So that's preparedness. That's being prepared. That's the level of preparedness they were capable of and what they felt was necessary. So think of that time frame. Think of the 5 hours we talked about. 3 hours. What do you think the time frame is? What percentage of the population would it take to, because there is a number and there is a scenario that's out there. There is a possible sequence of events that could take place where a major percentage of the United States population, or whatever population of whatever country you're in, would decide to rush for metals, or rush for food, or both. And when that happens, if it does happen, then it's on. It's game on. And the stuff disappears quickly. 5 hours it took. 5 hours from the moment the United States government announced they were going to attempt to ban a particular type of cartridge, from that cartridge disappearing from the market, from coast to coast, gone. Disappeared. It's that quick. So next time you drive by a grocery store, envision a crowd out front, and envision all of those people wanting to get inside of that store to clear the shelves of all the canned goods and food they can possibly carry out as fast as they possibly can. Imagine it at a Costco. Those pallets of rice. It looks like a lot, right? Looks like a lot of rice, a lot of flour, a lot of sugar in there. Now imagine every single person in your community wants those bags of flour and rice and sugar. They want all of it. Is there enough in there for 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 people immediately? No. No. Your Costco would sell out in 15 minutes. If it wasn't shut down or burned down because of a riot. So we'll close with that thought that we kind of placed some emphasis on. You're only as prepared as you are right now. Thanks for being part of the Junius Maltby channel. I encourage you to subscribe, to like, to share, to join the conversation, to pop comments down below, and to spread this message. Take part in this channel. Help us grow this community and help us awaken more people. You saw the last video that I did on "You're just a peasant." Well, it's true. We are. We're just peasants. But guess what? There's a lot of us. And if we all wake up at the same time, we can instigate change. We can create a momentum. And with an aggressive momentum for positive change and nonviolence, we, the peasants, we, the people, can make this planet a safer and better place for all of us. So I'd encourage you to take part and join the Junius Maltby Project here and help me out. Spread this message and give it a thumbs up and tell me what you're prepared for, where you draw your lines of preparedness. If it's nothing, then it's nothing. Maybe you don't care. But thanks for being part of the channel as always. Thanks for being here.